Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Hearts TV. I am your host for the evening, Ken Pike, and with me is Matt Crawshaw, the BBF Southern Youth League Commissioner and Chairman of the Leicester Blue Sox. Matthew, hello.
Hi there, Ken. How are you?
Not bad. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Really good.
Well, tonight we're going to be talking about youth baseball in the league, especially with the playoffs coming up, and its impact and development over the last season or two for both teams such as Hearts and Leicester Blue Sox, but also across the league in general. Matthew, you're the BBF Southern Youth League Commissioner, and you're obviously in an ideal position to see the youth development programs as they come into action and as they bear fruit. Hearts have obviously been at the forefront of developing their youth teams over the years and are reaping the rewards of that this year, with several of their senior teams, in fact, making it through to the playoffs, largely in part due to their youth players. What does it mean to have clubs like Hearts and like Leicester in the league?
Yeah, it's a real benefit to have clubs like Leicester, like Hearts, and I'd probably extend that to other organisations, like-minded organisations like London Mets, Bracknell Blazers, clubs who have both youth sections and adult teams. I think that's really important for the future of British baseball. It gives a pathway for kids as young as 7, 8, all the way through to the teenage years, and then, as we're now seeing, into the adult leagues, where clubs don't have a youth section, then it's possibly questionable how long they're likely to sustain their programme for. And indeed, it was one of those things that we identified as an organisation in Leicester, how well the Hearts programme had gone. And to a certain extent, we kind of wanted to copy the Hearts model in that regard, and that inspired us to set up our own youth section last year, and we're already seeing the benefits of that, like yourself, with some of our juniors progressing to our adult teams already.
Well, I think last year was probably the first year that Hearts really tasted of having the youth system. Several players started to make their felt in the senior leagues. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we went from across the club really being a team that at this point of the season we'd probably be looking to our other hobbies to fill our Sundays and possibly spending time with our families, but instead several of our teams are now gearing up for the postseason. The youth playoffs are also starting this Saturday with the Southern Youth Playoffs, and we understand that the matchups have now been announced. What are the teams involved, and what's the format that will decide what teams progress to the semi-finals, Matt?
Well, indeed, Ken, yes, it's all going to be hosted at Hearts Baseball at Grove Hill Park on Saturday, the 31st of August. And we have an extensive programme of junior games. If we perhaps focus on the pony schedule, first of all, that's the under-17s age group, that's the older age group in the junior baseball leagues. We have a menu of 3 games. We have at 10:30, we have the Bracknell Tornadoes, who are playing London Mets. The winner of that will then progress to the Youth National Baseball Championships at Farnham Park, and that will be held over the weekend of September the 14th to the 15th. We then have a real head-to-head at 1 o'clock. Both our teams are in action. Leicester Blue Sox against Hearts Harriers. Again, winner progresses to the YMBCs. So we're really looking forward to being down at Hearts playing the hosts. And at 3:30, we then have Horsham Hornets against Cobham Cougars. And again, the winners progress to the finals. The finals are going to be quite interesting this year. We are reverting back towards a Final Four format. The way that the postseason has worked out based on the number of teams spread across the country. We have 3 pony teams from the south going into the Final Four, and we have 1 team from the north, which I can confirm is Houghton Polecats. They've already qualified through the BBF North Pony Division. So it will be very exciting. Sudden death baseball, winner takes all and progresses to the Final Four, and a chance to play at Farnham Park, which of course is a fantastic facility that's recently opened, and teams are literally queuing up to play there. So I think the pony schedule will be extremely exciting. What we then have is the Bronco schedule, The Bronco schedule is based around trying to whittle down 5 teams down to 3. Now, when we looked at this seemed like a really difficult task, but what we've been able to do is operate a kind of double elimination format for the lower ranked teams and a winner-takes-all scenario for the higher ranked teams. So kicking off on the Bronco Diamonds at Hearts, we have Hearts Cardinals, the home team. They're actually playing against Forest Glade Redbacks. And then also at the same time, 10:30, we have London Sports against the London Youth Baseball League Bulldogs. Okay. Now, in each of those games, it's a little bit different how things will pan out. As Hearts and Forest Glade are the 2 lowest ranked teams, then basically the winner progresses to a slightly easier elimination game later in the schedule that day, and the loser goes towards a slightly harder elimination game further down the schedule. At 10:30, we also have, I said, London Sports and London Youth Baseball League. With that one, it's a kind of semi-elimination and progression game. The winner goes straight through to the Youth National Baseball Championships, and the loser then progresses to the second round of elimination games. Then we have at 1 o'clock an elimination game versus the London Mets, who are the top seed. Winner takes all in that and goes to the Youth National Baseball Championship. They play the loser of Hearts Cardinals and Forest Glade Redbacks. And then on the other diamond at 1 o'clock, we then have the winner of Game 1, so that would be the winner of Hearts Forest Glade against the loser of Game 2, and that would be the loser of London Sports and London Youth Baseball League Bulldogs. If you can follow all of that, that should then lead to 3 teams progressing from the 5, also playing at Farnham Park on the weekend of 14th, 15th of September. So there's still lots to play for. Even the lower ranked teams could probably perfectly capable of pulling a surprise out of the bag. The teams' rosters are being finalised by their respective team managers, and we're really looking forward to seeing a grand total of 7 games at Grove Hill Park, featuring 5 Bronco teams and 6 pony teams. Probably one of the biggest youth baseball events this season.
Well, yes, it's it's certainly a busy weekend for all concerned. It's many people who don't know the youth formats might be thinking that the young kids play a toned down version or a rule changed version, but they play full blooded and full contest, full size diamonds, high speed pitches at a kind of level that many adults would probably even struggle with in the lower leagues. Is that correct?
Pretty much so, especially at the pony level. What you're finding with pony is under 17s, it's a 90-foot diamond, so it's a full-size baseball field, proper adult rules. The only difference is aluminium bats are used for safety and durability, and the home run fence at certain ballparks is brought in a little bit. As we know, the Hearts baseball field is notoriously sympathetic for home runs, so there's no issue there whatsoever. So it's pretty much the same field. With Broncos, a little bit different. You have a 70-foot diamond, but they're still pitching proper, player pitched, to catchers and proper baseball rules. Same with the aluminium bats as the Pony League. There's a few nuances, sort of drop third strike rules and things like that. And also in the league games, there is a mercy scenario whereby if the team scores 5 runs in an inning, the inning is ended, and you move to the next half inning. The exciting thing about the playoffs, though, is that 5-run limit doesn't apply. So it's going to be, a real challenge. The best of the best players are going to be there at Grove Hill Park, and it will literally be end-to-end sudden death baseball, without any stabilisers.
And I think it's anyone who questions whether the little leaguers and the pony players in specific are in any way, not as good or still have any way to develop, I challenge them to come down to our Hunlock Series post-season friendly games, where Asprey normally runs a team full of youth players, and they generally tend to give the senior players a good run from their money. Apart from your role as BBF Southern League Commissioner, you're also the chairman of the Leicester Blue Sox. Your under-17s Blue Sox played their first season in the league this year. Have they enjoyed it, and what would be seen as a good outcome for them in the playoffs?
That's a really good question, Ken. Yeah, it's been our first season in the Pony League, and it's been a season of mixed fortunes. The season started with a lot of optimism. We were going to be playing some Pony League games in our Leicester Spring League. We were going to be having the GB juniors and GB cadets at Leicester for Leicester Spring League. We were going to be having a rookie exhibition game at the same event, and as you know, the weather put paid to that, and pretty much the entire program was wiped out. We then had our opening game of the season, which was a friendly against Hearts Harriers, about a month later in April, and again, the weather was simply atrocious. And I mean, credit to the lads, both the teams, Hearts and Leicester. They stuck through two games. It was a double header, and the second game in particular was played in pretty awful conditions. So certainly, as I said, the year started off with a lot of optimism, and then really the weather started to affect things, and we were starting to worry whether the summer would be very much like 2012, with lots of training and games cancelled, with rainouts, we were starting to get a little bit concerned. Then we had a lot of good weather through May and June. We had a few further setbacks with some of the teams in the Pony division, either withdrawing from the division altogether, or just not simply able to raise a team for the organised fixtures. So in the end, I think we lost something like 3 to 4 weeks before we were able to play again, and then that was back at Hearts, and we played Hearts and we played Horsham, and that was a really enjoyable day. We had a close game with Horsham in particular. And the kids really enjoyed that, and we repeated that three-way a few weeks later, and again the results were even closer. So we could see, despite the losses, the margin of loss was reducing. The runs scored for the Blue Sox teams was getting better, and we could see the kids really starting to develop and take shape. But naturally, being a first-year organisation, in particular playing with a lot of underage kids, because when we started our program last year, we ended up in this situation where half the membership were kind of pony age and the other half were bronco age, and if we just focused on one age group, i.e. the bronco age group, they wouldn't have a team. If we focused on the ponies, they wouldn't have a team because they didn't have enough players. So we made the bold decision to play a lot of youngsters up into that very first pony team, because we couldn't play the older ones down, and so it's been a steep learning curve for the kids. Some games they've enjoyed more than the others. We had a fantastic weekend over at Halton in the northwest in June. We played a mixed all-star game where the team had half Halton and half Blue Sox players, and that was a really close one-run game. And we also then played against the GB cadets as well, and that was a pretty decent showing as well. We've been very proud to see one of our first graduates to the GB program, Alf Dunton, who's just 14, and he's already part of the GB cadets program, and he's also played for Leicester Blue Sox Triple A first team as well, and has put in a really good showing for the Blue Sox first team. So I think overall we're very happy with how the year has developed. A few setbacks along the way with the weather and certain teams not being able to make certain games, so we've had to kind of chop and change the schedule around. But we've got the games done. We're at the playoffs, and we're very much looking forward to that. In terms of what we expect from the playoffs, we are probably thinking along the lines of using the playoffs as more of preparation for next season, so we can measure how we have progressed throughout the season. Interestingly, we played Hearts in a pre-season friendly, and then we've been to Hearts twice again during the league, and then somehow only seems appropriate that we're playing Hearts as the last game. Well, we hope it's not the last game of the season, but if it is the last game of the season, then we'll be able to see how we have improved during the course of 2013, and that will be an important marker as we start planning for next year. And we've got some big plans for next year.
Sure. And as you say, ultimately, in the playoffs are an occasion where any team that rises to the challenge and the occasion and keeps their nerve and calm on those conditions can go ahead and thrive. And as you said before, we're playing any team that goes through the semi-final will be going to the newly unveiled Farnham Park. That's essentially the national stadium for baseball. How much of a boost is it for the youth leagues to be able to play at a facility of that quality? I know several of the clubs around the country have good ballparks anyway, but Farnham Park is something special, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Farnham Park has really raised the bar. It's the new standard for British baseball fields, and I would love to see, a Farnham Park in the Midlands, a Farnham Park in the Northwest, the Northeast, a few more around London, one in the Southwest. Okay, we may be 5, 10, 20 years away from that, but the standard's now been set, right? So everything that follows is going to either be as good as Farnham Park, or it has to be now that standard raised. We've already had years at Farnham Park. We had a few that were part of the baseball academy program, and they were holding a training session on the main baseball field as part of the grand opening of Farnham Park. And since then, as I said, alluded to Alf Dunton of GB Cadets. GB Cadets have had some exhibition games down at Farnham Park as well. So certainly, I'm sure the word is spreading in the locker room, so to speak, between the junior players who've already been there and those who potentially may be making it next month. It'd be almost like a dream come true for them, really, because this is a proper purpose-built baseball facility. This isn't a baseball facility that's kind of been shoehorned into a corner of a football field or something like that. This is a proper 3-diamond facility, multi-sport facility, because obviously it holds both softball and baseball. Proper fencing all the way around. Nice big high backstops, dirt in field. What more could you want? So I think it's it's not just the juniors who are looking forward to Farnham Park. I mean, our adult team as well as Hearts adults teams, they're in the playoffs, and I'm sure the adult players are thinking exactly the same thing. It's a real added incentive to go that extra mile in those playoff games, because everybody wants to be one of the first teams at Farnham Park this year.
I suppose it's also it will be revealing in many respects, because there are no excuses there. There's no, it was a bumpy ground, or the ball came funny off a lump of dirt or a piece of carpet that's bizarrely in the middle of the field. This is prime ground. It'll be down to the team's skills, their mental attitude, and ultimately how they play on the day. There's a lot of teams going to Farnham Park, both adults and juniors. What diamonds are the juniors going to be playing on? Are the finals all on the main stadium?
That's a really good question. When Farnham Park was first conceived and designed, there was perhaps a little bit of concern in the British baseball community that there was only one, in inverted commas, full-size baseball diamond. And there were then question marks over why there were 3 softball diamonds. Now, if you sort of look on the website, some of the stories that have been on the Baseball Softball UK website, BBF website, the organisers of the National Baseball Championships and Youth National Baseball Championships, having road tested Farnham Park at the official opening, are very confident that the softball fields, if you like to call them that, can be adapted not only for junior baseball but also for adult baseball. Just to give you an idea, the home run fence in the softball fields is actually bigger than Hearts baseball. So I would suggest that some of the baseball teams out there who are hoping to play on the main diamond, that's great. You may well be surprised how big that home run line is on the main diamond, and you may have wished to play on the slightly smaller diamond. But I'm pretty confident that the way that the facility has been designed, it's been designed really as not just a 3 softball field facility, but with adaptations, it can be easily a very high quality 3 diamond baseball facility, as we will show at the youth and adult national baseball championships. So yeah, you're going to have Bronco, you're going to have Pony on the slightly smaller diamonds, but there will also be adult games on those slightly smaller diamonds, and I don't think there will be any concerns. I know the BBF and BSUK are looking in at bringing in temporary mounds to be used on those smaller baseball fields. Again, I don't think there's any major concern with that, because rather than it being some sort of box-like structure that you have to wear trainers on, it will actually be, if you can visualize it, it's going to be more like a kind of sort of temporary wedge, but then clay, etc., will be built around it, especially for those championships. So it will resemble, as best as we can, a proper clay mound, and you'll be wearing cleats, and you're going to be able to step off, north, south, east, and west on that mound. So I'm very confident that we're going to be able to pull this off, and those who participate next month at Farnham Park will be absolutely delighted with the facilities, and it will be a significant change in gear on previous National Baseball Championships, both in terms of the facilities, the organisation, and then all of the kind of the side shows, concessions, the razzmatazz. We've designed the format so the teams and the people that follow those teams, the fans and the friends and the relatives, stay at the facility longer, so we have a much greater atmosphere. Rather than we have teams coming and going during the day, the schedule's been designed to keep people at the ballpark longer, to give this year's baseball season a real big send-off. So we're absolutely looking forward to getting down there.
And I suppose ultimately the best way to ensure that you've got one of the best seats in the house is to make sure your team keeps winning rounds and you keep on having a place to sit in the dugout. So that's basically the youth and adult playoffs coming to Farnham Park starting this weekend and continuing right on through into September. We're going to be leaving that now, so thank you, Matthew, for your insights there. But before we go, I'll just ask you a couple of general questions. It's your first year as a BBF board member, as I understand it. Has it been an enjoyable experience?
It has been an enjoyable experience. I'm not saying that through gritted teeth. I have loved. You can't see me, so I can say that, can't I? No, I've enjoyed it. I've absolutely enjoyed it. When I volunteered for the BBF board, I simply didn't want to have some kind of position on the board whereby all I'm simply doing is arranging the schedule and dealing with all the not so nice stuff like ejections and queries and complaints and so on. And yes, we did the schedule. There's been quite a lot of problems with youth baseball this season with actually getting the schedule completed, and just to give you a little bit of an insight, that's now going through a full and comprehensive review. In some respects, it's been a blessing that so few youth baseball games have been played, because it has literally spurred me into the kind of the next stage of being a board member, and that's actually looking at overseeing reforms and change and making baseball better. And that's the whole reason why I've volunteered for the board in the first place, is actually to drive baseball forward, increase participation in the youth leagues, increase participation with clubs setting up new junior sections. And I've been delighted with the comments and contacts that I've had from many clubs around the country. I've literally, just before this call, I put down the phone on Oxford Kings, and they're looking at setting up a junior section. So I've been giving them some advice on how to put together a proposal document, get some Sport England funding in, and they're absolutely delighted with that feedback. I've also been working very closely with the Northants baseball team, who are a brand new baseball team in the Midlands. Again, I'm going to be, I was there at their inaugural sort of establishment meeting with Will Linton, and we helped sort of get them started with a BSUK baseball for beginners course, and Northants actually then played one of their first games at Weston Park just at the weekend gone by against Leicester Blue Sox, and they look a real tidy outfit. And I'm sure youth baseball is on their plan as well. So I'm going to be going down to Northampton in a couple of weeks' time to sit down with Mark and Paul at the club and help them with their Sport England funding. And as I said to Gian at Oxford just earlier this evening, Sport England are begging for baseball clubs to apply for this money. There was perhaps maybe a myth 3 or 4 years ago that baseball won't get the money, baseball won't, it's a small sport, it's one of them sort of funny sports that Sport England won't support. But Sport England are absolutely desperate to fund baseball, because the reason why is because they get so few applications from baseball clubs, full stop. So in some respects, we've only got ourselves to blame, and it's really important that the word is spread. So, as I said, through the connections that I've had with places like Oxford, I've been speaking to Hull, I've been speaking to places like Hartlepool, Nottingham as well, just to help them along, point them in the right direction. Yeah, I know it's been quite widely publicised that teams like Hearts have been able to get funding and sponsorship, and yes, they've had their fair share as well as the team. But I want all the teams and clubs to be able to do that, to be able to have the opportunity to get a sizable grant in, £5,000 to £10,000, kickstart a junior programme at your club, get some teams playing locally at your organisation, and I promise you it will repay dividends for years to come, as we have seen with Hearts in recent years, with some of their pony players going into the GB Cadets programme, going into the adult team programme. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So absolutely, thoroughly enjoyed working on the board this year. The best is yet to come. Some of it this year has been a little bit kind of crisis management. It's kind of sort of handling the inherent issues that were there before I came onto the board. But I think we're definitely moving in the right direction. As I said, there's been a comprehensive youth baseball review that's been going on, spearheaded by BSUK and the BBF, along with a number of other important people at various baseball clubs. ASPI, of course, has been involved with that as well. So expect some big news for youth baseball next season, coming soon in the next few months, and lots of other stuff, lots of other good stuff for 2014. I think Farnham Park has been probably the biggest success of the year. We need to embrace it at the youth and adult national baseball championships, and then use that as a platform to take us even higher next year and year after that. But the big thing is, the big message is there are pots of money out there that are easy to get your hands on. It just needs to be a little bit coordinated. There's a few T&Cs that you need to cover off, but there's no reason why teams like Milton Keynes, Liverpool, Sheffield, Richmond, Croydon, these types of teams, they would absolutely love what would actually happen if they started a youth section. It would really invigorate their organisation. They would get more volunteers at their club. They'd get more money rolling into the club, and they would secure the future of their club, which at the end of the day is what it's all about. So yeah, it's been a fantastic first year on the board, but hey, there's still another sort of 3 or 4 months to go. So watch this space. There's some really big stuff coming your way.
So there you go, with funding available to clubs around the country, new national facilities like Farnham Park, clubs up and down the country, such as Hearts, yours truly, developing fields that are comparable at least. Youth teams up and down the country developing young players, and adult teams benefiting from that and going to the playoffs. We really are looking at a very bright and successful era for British baseball starting right now. Things have really improved over the last a year or two. In fact, even certainly since I started playing only about 4 or 5 years ago. Quick question, Matt. How many years before we start getting paid to play and we're on TV?
Well, that's a really, really good question. It's something that has cropped up in many a discussion of late. Now, the interesting thing is I've been speaking to a lot of basketball clubs who are, by definition, in this country, semi-professional. And so you have a situation, say, at something like Leicester Riders, who are the British basketball champions. They are bringing in exceptional, underdeveloped talent from the States to play in their games and actually have a standard and a quality of play that people then will want to pay money to watch. That's probably the tipping point for British baseball. If we can get to a point where the very highest level, i.e. National Baseball League, has Farnham Park facilities, length and breadth of the country, we then have people that are prepared to pay money through the turnstiles, sit in the stands, extra talent pool money coming in from places like Sport England to bring in envoy coaches and additional sponsorship. I know in Leicester there's a lot of sponsors that back Leicester Riders. They don't give Leicester Riders money, but they may give accommodation to some of these players that are coming over from the States. So I think I couldn't put a number of years on it, but I can see where the next stage of the development would be. We could potentially get to a semi-professional status in the future. It'd have to be a semi-organic approach. So we'd all have to move forward together. I think it'd be quite dangerous if we allowed one club to jump in and become professional first, and then you have a kind of sort of professional versus amateur setup. I think that could be quite destructive. That may be what happened with the Scottish Amicable Baseball League back in the 80s, where it kind of jumped a little bit too far too quickly. So I certainly wouldn't rule it out. I think it can be done. I think there's probably a lot of work to do on facilities. So I think that there's we're looking at a fairly reasonable timeline before we get to that point. But I certainly wouldn't rule it out because in terms of things like TV, I don't watch TV anymore. I don't watch TV. Most things I tend to watch now are on the internet, and just to kind of link it back into basketball, I've seen that British Basketball League have now launched their own online TV service that you can pay a small subscription, to watch your basketball team, because it's not shown on Sky Sports. Some highlight games, and that's about it. Other than that, you can't watch your local basketball team on Sky Sports. It's all kind of priced out of the equation because of the millions of pounds that are swirling around in football. But I don't think that's a major problem. You look at something like MLB TV, it's one of the biggest online TV services globally, and it's ahead of its time really in terms of its technical capabilities. So I certainly can see British baseball ending up on some sort of online TV service similar to what the British Basketball League are doing. I think if you look very closely at the British Basketball League and see how they're developing, that is probably something that British baseball can learn things from and move forward towards. How long it will take, that's a question I can't answer. But I think there is a vision, and you know, we could get to a stage at some point in the future where you've got paying fans and you've got people paying to get to watch games online. Quite a few years away yet, but you know, if British basketball can do it, there's no reason why we can't do it.
Well, I was going to say, any sort of, just if not, maybe not for profit or for pay, but even just getting a streaming of the playoffs on the BBF website. Who knows? Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Hearts TV and Radio as we look to the road to the playoffs with Matt Crawshaw, BBF Southern Youth League Commissioner. Thank you very much, Matt, and we will be seeing more of you soon.